It started with a locked drawer. The kind the woman always kept tucked beneath the bed, buried under folded sheets. Hidden as though it were a relic from another world. The son had never thought much of it, until the day he found the key. It wasn't curiosity at first, but instinct. Something in the way she guarded that drawer, how she tensed whenever he entered the room, had begun to gnaw at him. One afternoon, when she was out shopping and the father was working late, he opened it. Inside were things that didn't belong in their quiet, ordinary life, old photographs. Envelopes of cash, jewelry he'd never seen her wear, and a phone he didn't recognize. He turned it on. The screen lit up with dozens of messages, each one from strangers, calling her by a name that wasn't hers. His chest tightened as he scrolled. There were photos of her in expensive clothes, smiling beside men he didn't know. At restaurants and hotel rooms, in cities she'd never mentioned visiting. The timestamps were recent. Every detail tore another thread in the fabric of what he thought their family was. The woman who had tucked him into bed, who had told him lies about loyalty and love, had another life entirely, a secret world built out of deceit. When she returned that evening, he was waiting at the kitchen table with the phone beside him. She froze the moment she saw it. Her mask cracked, just for a second, but enough for him to see the truth in her eyes. "Where did you get that?" she whispered. "From your drawer," he said. "How long have you been lying to us?" She sat down, her face pale, her breath uneven. "You don't understand," she murmured. "It wasn't what it looks like. It looks like you have another life." Tears welled in her eyes, but he couldn't tell if they were real or another performance. "Before I met your father," she began, "I did things I'm not proud of. When we married, I thought I could leave it all behind. But some parts of the past don't stay buried." He wanted to believe her. But then he opened one of the newer messages, one sent just 2 days ago. The man's words were intimate, familiar, filled with promises that had nothing to do with the father waiting upstairs. "You're still doing it," he said quietly. Her lips parted, but no sound came. For the first time, she didn't have an answer. He stood up, trembling with something between rage and heartbreak. "Does he know?" he asked. "No," she said. "And he never will. Please." The plea made him sick. He turned and left the room before he could say something he'd regret. That night, he couldn't sleep. The image of her double life haunted him, the version of her that smiled at strangers while pretending to love the man upstairs. He thought about telling his father. About burning her world to the ground the way she had burned theirs. By morning, he had made his decision. He printed the photos, left them neatly stacked on the kitchen counter beside the old phone, and went out without a word. When he returned later, the house was in chaos. The father was standing in the doorway, the papers scattered around him like ashes. The woman was crying, her things half packed. The father looked at the son, betrayed and broken. "You knew?" he asked. The son said nothing. His silence was answer enough. She tried to speak, to explain, but the father's voice cut through the room like a blade. "Leave." And she did. After she was gone, the house felt heavier. The father moved like a man carrying invisible weight. The son told himself he had done the right thing, that truth was better than lies. But at night, when he heard the sound of the father's quiet sobs, he wasn't so sure. Weeks later, a letter arrived addressed to him. The handwriting was unmistakable. "You took everything from me, but maybe I deserved it. Just remember, no one wins in revenge. Not even you." He tore the letter apart, but the words stayed with him. In the end, she was right. He hadn't won. He had only uncovered a truth that left them all ruined. Sometimes, late at night, he wondered if she'd built another life somewhere new, another name. Another story, another family that didn't know who she really was. And he wondered if, deep down, he'd just helped her start it all over again. The house grew quieter after she left, but not peaceful, never peaceful. The father moved through the rooms like a man who had lost his footing. As if every sound reminded him of her absence. The son tried to ignore the guilt that pulsed beneath his anger. He told himself it was justice, that she had earned her exile. But when he found the father sitting at the table long past midnight, staring at an untouched cup of coffee, something in him began to crumble. He hadn't expected his revenge to hurt this much. Everywhere he looked, her ghost lingered, the half-empty closet, the perfume that still clung to the hallway, the notes she had left on the fridge in her delicate handwriting, reminders, grocery lists. Small domestic things that now felt like fragments of a life that never existed. The father didn't speak of her. He didn't ask how the son had found out, didn't blame him, didn't thank him. That silence was worse than any anger could have been. It hollowed out the house until only the echoes of what had been remained. One night, while sorting through the father's paperwork, the son found an envelope buried beneath a pile of bills. Inside was a bank statement showing large withdrawals made over the past few months, amounts that matched the cash he had seen in her hidden drawer. He realized then that she hadn't just been living a second life. She had been taking from this one to fund it. The next morning, he showed the papers to the father. The older man looked at them for a long time before setting them down. "You don't have to keep proving what she did," he said quietly. "I believe you. But she stole from us," the son pressed. The father met his eyes. "Then let her carry that burden. We have enough of our own." It was the first time he had heard the father sound tired, truly tired. Not just from work, but from something that reached deeper than exhaustion. The son wanted to say something, to apologize maybe, but the words felt impossible. That evening, he went to the drawer where he had first found her phone. It was still there, dead and dusty. He turned it over in his hands, wondering if she had left anything behind, any clue to where she had gone. When he powered it on, the screen flickered to life for a moment, revealing a single unsent message. "I wish you could understand why I did it." He stared at it, the glow of the screen soft against the dark room. For the first time, he didn't feel the rush of rage. Only confusion. What had she meant? What could possibly justify years of deceit? Over the next few days, he couldn't stop thinking about it. He went through the messages again, but this time, instead of anger, he read them with a kind of detached sorrow. Beneath the lies, there was something else, a pattern of desperation. Of someone pretending to be wanted, to be loved. He began to wonder if she had built her second life not out of malice but out of emptiness. Maybe the lies had started long before she ever entered their home. When he told the father this, the man only sighed. "Maybe you're right," he said. "But understanding doesn't mean forgiving." Still, that night, the son dreamed of her, the way she used to laugh softly at the dinner table. The way she brushed her hair back when she thought no one was watching. The dream felt almost real, until he woke up and remembered what she'd done. He didn't tell his father about the dream. Some things were better left unsaid. But in the quiet of that house, between guilt and grief, he began to understand something she had written, that no one wins in revenge. Because even the righteous are left holding ashes. The seasons shifted, but the weight in the house did not. The father moved through the days as if half asleep, doing what needed to be done but with no real presence in it. The son tried to fill the silence with noise, music, television, anything, but it never worked. The quiet always found its way back. One morning, a letter arrived addressed to the father. The handwriting was hers. The son saw it lying on the counter before his father did. The curve of the letters sharp and elegant, painfully familiar. For a moment, he considered hiding it. He could throw it away, burn it, erase her voice once and for all. But something stopped him. Maybe he wanted his father to have closure. Maybe he wanted to see what she could possibly say now. The father read it that evening. The son watched from the doorway as the older man's eyes moved across the page. His face unreadable. When he finished, he folded the letter carefully and placed it beside his plate. He didn't speak for a long time. "What did she say?" the son finally asked. The father rubbed his forehead, his voice low and tired. "That she's sorry. That she's working somewhere in another city, trying to start again. That she still dreams of us." The words lingered in the air like smoke. The son didn't know what to feel. Anger, relief, pity. Maybe all of them at once. "Do you believe her?" he asked. The father looked up, meeting his eyes. "I don't need to." That night, the son found the letter still on the table. He unfolded it and read it for himself. The handwriting wavered, as though written by a trembling hand. "I know I broke everything. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope time will soften what I've done. Please tell him I never meant to live two lives. I just didn't know how to live one." He read it twice, the words burning deeper each time. It wasn't an excuse, it was a confession. And in that honesty, he saw something he hadn't expected. Not manipulation, not defiance, but a kind of exhaustion. The letter was the voice of someone who had finally run out of lies. He folded it again and slipped it back where he found it. But sleep didn't come that night. He lay awake, thinking about how much of her he had misunderstood. Revenge had made everything simple before. She was wrong, he was right. His father was the victim. But now, the truth was messier. Maybe it always had been. The following weekend, he went to visit the town mentioned in her letter. He didn't tell his father. He just needed to see. It was a small coastal place, quiet and faded, the kind of town where no one asked questions. He didn't find her, though he wasn't sure what he would have said if he had. Instead, he sat on a bench by the pier, watching the tide pull in and out. He imagined her somewhere nearby, alone, trying to rebuild a version of herself that wasn't a lie. When he returned home, the father was sitting in the living room, holding the letter again. "You went looking for her, didn't you?" the older man asked. He hesitated, then nodded. "Did you find her?" "No." The father leaned back, his eyes closing briefly. "Good," he said softly. "Let her have whatever peace she can find." For the first time, the son realized that forgiveness wasn't something you gave to others. It was something you gave yourself to stop bleeding. The next morning, he took the letter, folded it neatly, and placed it inside a drawer. Not to hide it, but to keep it safe, a reminder of what the truth had cost all of them. Outside, the world was beginning to warm again. The light through the windows felt gentler somehow. The pain was still there, but so was something else, something quieter. Like the beginning of acceptance. Months passed before life began to resemble something normal again. The father returned to his routines, mornings in the garden, evenings with the same old newspaper, nights that ended in silence instead of conversation. The son went back to work, back to his friends, back to pretending he had moved on. But beneath the surface, nothing was the same. Sometimes he'd catch his father staring at nothing, lost in thought. A faint tremor in his jaw that betrayed everything he was trying not to feel. Other times, the son would walk past the room where she once slept and feel a strange tug, an ache that was half anger, half nostalgia. It wasn't love, but it wasn't hate anymore either. It was something duller, heavier, the residue of both. One day, while cleaning the attic, the son found a box labeled with her handwriting. Inside were notebooks, neatly stacked. He hesitated before opening one. Each page was filled with fragments, unsent letters, unfinished thoughts, and small details about their lives. He smiled today at breakfast. I don't deserve to see it. I thought I could be better here. Every day I lie, and every day I wish I didn't have to. He read for hours, the words unraveling her secret world. She hadn't written about the men or the double life. She had written about them, about the house, the meals, the small kindnesses she never earned. It was as if she had been trying, in her own broken way, to belong. By the time he finished, he couldn't tell if he was crying out of sorrow or regret. He closed the notebook and carried it downstairs. His father was in the kitchen, fixing a loose hinge on the cabinet. I found something, the son said quietly. He handed him the box. The father looked at it for a long moment before setting his tools aside. Together they read through the pages in silence. Neither spoke. When they finished, the father closed the last notebook and said, almost to himself, "She was trying. She just didn't know how." The son nodded, unable to trust his voice. The father smiled faintly, though it didn't reach his eyes. "It's strange," he said. "After everything, I still can't hate her." That night, the son sat on the porch long after dark, watching the sky turn from deep blue to black. He thought about the woman who had once lived two lives, one of deception, one of longing, and how, in the end, both had fallen apart. He wondered if she ever thought of them. If she ever imagined the quiet house she had left behind. He took one of the notebooks with him to bed and read until he fell asleep. Her words followed him into his dreams, soft and uncertain. If I ever disappear, I hope they'll remember that I loved them, even if I didn't know how to show it. Weeks later, he mailed the notebooks to the return address from her last letter. No note, no message, just her own words, sent back to where they belonged. After that, the house began to feel lighter, as though releasing something long trapped inside its walls. The father still tended the garden, and the son still woke with the same ache in his chest. But it was changing, slowly, quietly. They never received a reply. But one afternoon, a small package arrived with no return address. Inside was a single photo, the sea at dusk, the sky streaked with pale gold. On the back, in her familiar handwriting, it said only, "Thank you." The son placed it on the mantel beside the family photo. It didn't feel like forgiveness. It didn't feel like closure. But it felt real. And for the first time, that was enough. Years blurred together after that, softly, quietly. Like the fading of a dream that once felt too vivid to forget. The father grew older, slower, but steadier too. The anger that had once consumed him dissolved into something gentler, acceptance, maybe. Or a resignation. The son built a life beyond the house, but he returned often, as if drawn by the same gravity that had once held them all together. Every trace of her was gone except for the photo on the mantel, the one of the sea. The horizon swallowing the sun. The son sometimes caught the father staring at it, his fingers resting lightly on the frame. He never asked what the man thought in those moments. Some memories didn't need words. One autumn evening, as the wind rattled through the garden, the father spoke for the first time about her in years. You know, he said, I used to think she ruined everything. But now I think maybe we all did, in our own ways. The son looked up from the newspaper. You didn't do anything wrong. The father gave a faint, knowing smile. I didn't listen. That's its own kind of mistake. Later that night, the son stood outside, the cold air sharp against his skin. He thought about all the ways revenge had changed him, how he had believed exposing her would fix what she broke. Instead, it had left him with emptiness. The kind that settled deep inside and stayed. Months passed. Then, unexpectedly, another letter arrived, postmarked from the same coastal town. The handwriting was shakier now. I'm ill, it said. Not much time left. I didn't write to ask for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I've kept that picture of the three of us. It's the only thing I never sold or left behind. The son read it twice, his hands trembling. He didn't tell his father right away. Instead, he sat with it for days, unsure what to do with a confession written at the edge of someone's life. When he finally showed it to the older man, the father's eyes softened, then dimmed with something unspoken. Will you go? The son asked. The father thought for a moment. No, some goodbyes are better left unfinished. But that night the son couldn't sleep. The letter felt heavy in his pocket, as though it demanded something of him. So he left before dawn, driving through the still dark countryside toward the coast. He found her living in a small house near the cliffs. She was thinner, her hair streaked with gray, her face marked by time and regret. When she opened the door, her breath caught, as if she'd seen a ghost. You came, she whispered. He didn't know what to say. For a long moment, they just stood there. Strangers bound by everything they'd done to each other. Finally, he said, he knows you wrote. She nodded slowly. I didn't expect he'd come. He didn't. Her eyes glistened. Good. He deserves peace. They talked for a while, about small things, about nothing. She told him she worked in a bookstore now, that she spent her days reading to children. When she smiled, it was faint but real. Before leaving, he asked, why did you keep that photo? Her gaze dropped. Because it was the only time I believed I could be someone good. He didn't hug her. He didn't forgive her. But when he left, he felt lighter, as if something long buried had finally exhaled. Weeks later, another letter arrived, this one in the same handwriting but written by someone else. It said she had passed away quietly, holding a photograph in her hands. The father said nothing when he heard. That night, he went into the garden and planted a small tree. Something should grow where loss once lived, he murmured. Years later, when the son looked at that tree, tall, steady, reaching for light, he understood what his father meant. Some wounds don't heal by forgetting. They heal by learning to coexist with what's gone. And sometimes, that's the closest thing to forgiveness anyone ever gets. Spring returned again, gentle and slow, washing the world in color. The small tree in the garden, planted in her memory, had begun to bloom. Its white petals shimmered against the morning light, delicate but resilient. As if growing was its way of remembering. The father sat beneath it most mornings now, his hands folded in his lap. His gaze lost somewhere far away. The son had moved into the city, but he visited often. Each time, he brought something: fresh bread, a new book. Stories from a life that kept moving forward. The house no longer felt haunted, it felt lived in again, worn but whole. Still, there were traces of her everywhere, in the old photo by the mantel, in the faint scent of her perfume that time could never quite erase, in the quiet understanding that their lives had been permanently shaped by her choices. One afternoon, while cleaning out an old drawer, the son found a letter tucked behind a stack of unopened envelopes. The handwriting was hers. He recognized the slant of the letters immediately. The date was from years ago, before she had fallen ill. The paper had yellowed, the ink faded, but her words were clear. If you ever find this, it means I never had the courage to send it. I wanted to tell you that I did love you, both of you. But love isn't enough when a person doesn't know who she is. I lived 2 lives because I was too afraid to choose one. I lost both because I didn't deserve either. He folded the letter carefully and brought it to the garden. The father listened as he read it aloud, his eyes fixed on the branches above them. When the son finished, there was a long silence. The older man's lips parted slightly, his voice barely a whisper. She always wanted to be forgiven. Maybe this is how we finally do it. They buried the letter beneath the roots of the tree. No ceremony, no words of release, just quiet understanding. The earth accepted it easily, as if it had been waiting. That evening, they sat together on the porch as the sun dipped low behind the hills. The air smelled of rain and earth, the way it always had after she watered the garden. You think she'd like the tree? The son asked. The father smiled faintly. She'd probably say it's growing too close to the fence. But yes, I think she would. They laughed softly, and for a brief, flickering moment, it felt like the house was whole again, not because the pain had vanished, but because it had finally settled into something livable. Years later, when the father passed, the son buried his ashes beneath the same tree. He didn't write a headstone. Instead, he placed a small stone carved with a single word, enough. Because that was what they had all been searching for, not redemption, not revenge, not even forgiveness. Just enough peace to stop fighting the ghosts of what had been. Each spring, the tree bloomed brighter. The petals fell like quiet blessings across the soil, whispering of everything that had once gone wrong, and everything that, somehow, had managed to survive it. And when the son stood there alone one evening, the wind moving softly through the branches, he felt no anger, no sorrow, only the faint, fragile truth of what remained. Love, even broken, had outlived them all.